is going on, Only Playbook fans? We are back. The Super Bowl is over. Womp, womp, womp. The season has come to an end. It's a sad day for us to have to sit here and talk about the football season coming to an end after such a wild season. But what's crazy is all of the variances show it. Every scenario, every other team that thought they were going to win it, in the end, it didn't matter because one person reigns supreme in the NFL, and his name is Patrick Mahomes. And the Chiefs win the Super Bowl. Kyle Shanahan loses a third Super Bowl, I believe now. So it's a very sad place to be if you're a 49ers fan, if you're rooting for the 49ers. Obviously, if you're a Chiefs fan or if you're a Swiftie, you won a Super Bowl the quickest I think any fandom has ever won a Super Bowl. So I don't know what that's like, so I can't relate. But how are you feeling post Super Bowl, Shovit? I know we have a lot to unpack.
Man, that was just a crazy, like a wild event that happened during the Super Bowl. You know, it was just like the ending was just cinematic. Like it's like everything that a Swiftie would want, anything that a new fan that was watching the football for the first time would want. So, you know, kudos to the NFL to putting out a great product out there. It was the best teams, I think, respectively in each of their divisions, conferences playing, and we got a good show.
Yeah, I mean, I think it went down as the most watched Super Bowl ever. I think one of the highest viewership of anything that's ever, essentially anything that's ever happened in the U.S., not counting the World Cup, right? So World Cup, I believe, had some like 1 billion views, but you think about the World Cup, that's 1 billion out of 7.8 billion people in the world. So it's like 18-19% of their viewership. The Super Bowl saw just in the US, I believe 123 million viewers, which is over a third of the population. So
that's,
I mean,
insane.
It's insane.
It compares to the moon landing, I think, is what I saw.
Yeah.
Like the moon landing in the 1960s, which is a remarkable event for US history, that's how close this game that we watch got, like the viewership that it got was close to that. It's remarkable.
Considering also the fact that during the moon landing, everybody was only tuned into one thing because you don't have cell phones, you don't have the internet, you don't have like channels that you can choose to watch and stuff, right? Completely different now. People can choose to watch everything or anything besides the Super Bowl. And the fact that they still did, it's incredible. And again, like you said, the game played out towards the end, second half at least, how football fans would have wanted to see it play out. One of the better Super Bowls. So we want to break it all down. Obviously, if you watched the game, you saw that the Chiefs won the game. They were down. They came back. Patrick Mahomes now 3 Super Bowl wins in all 3 of the Super Bowls. He's been a 10-point. He's been losing by 10 points or more in every single Super Bowl he's played in all 3 of the wins that he's played in. So it just is a testament to that quarterback, to Andy Reid, to the fact that all year, Shovit, we sat here and talked about this offensive line isn't as good as they used to be. Who are the weapons that are catching passes? Travis Kelce looks a little bit older. You have a 7th round running back who, obviously a running back in the 7th round could be anything. And there was all the uncertainty surrounding the wide receiver position, even maybe 3/4 of the season through guys dropping passes, Kelce all of a sudden tapering off and not looking like the same player. Mahomes finished from a fantasy standpoint, because that's what you predominantly cover, quarterback 8, right? So from the outside lens, you're like, this is not the same Chiefs team. Mahomes isn't producing the same that he always does. Kelce's dropping off. So I think it was written in the stars with everybody's, I guess, guesses that the Chiefs weren't going to. This wasn't the year for the Chiefs. This was one of those lull years that all the dynasties have, right? And again, lo and behold, they proved us wrong and said, we don't care about lull years. We are a dynasty. When you have one player and one player only, and you pair that with one of the best coaches of all time, I think that was the difference. So I want to I'll kick it off to you. Obviously, the big names are the big names, but what impressed you, or who impressed you the most in the Super Bowl in terms of standout performances or things that kind of caught your eye?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, big kudos to both of those defenses, right? Like in the first half of that game, the game was kind of slow, right? You had
very slow
49ers that did score, 10 points, unanswered points. But at the same time, 3 sacks, 1 interception against Mahomes, also a fumble. So I thought the 49ers defense did a really good job there on the defense to contain Mahomes and that team as a whole in the first half. And then the same thing in the second half where the Chiefs defense kind of steps up, right? Now you have fumbles, that huge extra point block. How crucial was that? Where you could have gone up by 49ers could have gone up by 4 points, but instead it's 3 points. Chiefs can come back and tie the game with a field goal to force it into overtime, and it's exactly what it did. So the defenses played really well. It's kind of surprising that the 49ers actually let go of their defensive coordinator after this. I didn't think that they were that bad, like that had to go. But they've got to be in shambles right now, being so close, being such a great offensive team, and not being able to win. So I think that for me, when I'm looking at this game, I thought it was a slow game in the first half. Defenses really stepped up. But guys like Mecole Hardman, who was doing 3 catches, but that touchdown at the end, that was crucial. And long plays. I was like, Mecole Hardman still plays for the Chiefs. I forgot that he got traded in October.
He came back
from the Jets. And I was like, oh yeah, this guy's still there. Oh, and he performed very well as well. So I thought that defenses and Mecole Hardman really kind of stuck out to me personally.
Yeah, I mean, and that continues to be the story for the Chiefs, right? I sent you guys the graphics since they traded Tyreek Hill. They're 7-0, including 7-0 in the playoffs, including 2-0 in Super Bowls. So you trade basically the best receiver in the league. It doesn't matter. I think as a Vikings fan, and I think when you just kind of glance around the NFL, obviously Mahomes is one of one. You can't replicate that level of success or that type of quarterback play. But what do we constantly do about every other player that's not maybe Patrick Mahomes? We always find excuses. We're like, dude, the offensive line just wasn't good. He was sacked 10 times. Dude, the receivers were dropping passes. Dude, the defense just didn't step up. It seems like for Patrick Mahomes, it doesn't matter. Guys were dropping passes all season, Shobit. All season. Mahomes had to run for, I think he had 9 carries for 66 yards because his offensive line wasn't protecting him well. It did not matter. So here we are. We constantly talk about how it is a team game. And 100% is a team game. You need a full team to win. And a lot of times when one aspect of a team isn't carrying their weight, it's going to carry over to every other aspect. And that's going to make it harder for you to be successful. But it seems like when it comes to Mahomes, when it comes to the greats, when it comes to Tom Brady, when it comes to people, that we want our quarterback to be, or we aspire to find a quarterback to play at that level, they are always succeeding in spite of all of these other variables that come into play in football. So all of the, next echelon of elite quarterbacks that aren't Mahomes, we're always like, dude, but if you just had a little bit of a better receiver, man, dude, if they draft an offensive tackle this year, they can really protect. But we don't find excuses for Patrick Mahomes because he himself refuses to make excuses no matter what it is. No matter what it is. You saw Rashee Rice come off the field, and he ran that in route and was wide open for a touchdown, screaming at Mahomes' face, right? What did Mahomes do? Hey, you little bitch, listen here. The snap was at my feet. Yeah, motherfucker, whatever. Sorry. Motherfucker, little bitch, whatever. But he was like, the snap was at my feet. What did you expect me to do? So it's like, dude, when times are tough, they look on the leader of the team to elevate everybody else, right? You have Kelsey yelling at a head coach. All of those things are recipes for things to transpire and go into shambles, right? For it to basically domino effect into the negative. But no, this is a franchise. This is a dynasty that all of this crap is happening. But you have legitimate, Mahomes and Kelsey and Reed and Chris Jones, these leaders, in spite of all of this noise that's happening during the game, they all have one common goal, and it's to win. And I think you just see that, man, when push comes to shove, when times are tough, all of these guys make plays. Mecole Hardman was a hero. MVS was a hero, a guy we clown time and time again. Sky Moore, who was nobody this year, was the Super Bowl hero last year. Kadarius Toney has been a Super Bowl hero. Motherfucker was inactive this year. So they are finding people like you and me off the street to win them Super Bowls. It's incredible. It's very, very common to the whole Tom Brady era where he was throwing to Deion Branch. He was throwing to randos who weren't Wes Welker, who weren't Randy Moss when they were winning the Super Bowl, right? So, again, we make excuses for quarterbacks that aren't elite because we're like, they need this, they need that, they need this. And then you have these elite quarterbacks that make absolutely no excuses. And I think that's the biggest thing to me. And that's why, we're heading into an offseason where the draft, we'll talk about all that. But that's the biggest thing I think every franchise needs to look at. You had a team, the San Francisco 49ers, the best team in football. They have the best team in football, basically, right? Outside of the quarterback position, who, again, no slouch. but they were playing against a team who was not the best team in football. They just happen to have the best player on the planet who happens to be their quarterback. And that was the difference. So how do you not use this as a blueprint is kind of what I'm throwing to you. How do you not use this as a blueprint to continue to look at the fact that elite quarterbacks win Super Bowls? All of the outliers of teams winning Super Bowls are, with a great defense, whatever, those are outliers, man. The elitist of elite quarterbacks are who win Super Bowls, like Ben Roethlisberger. So talk to me about kind of what the blueprint for teams who are not there, who don't have a franchise quarterback. Like, this is a year in the draft where it's like, man, we're seeing 3-4 guys could be the future. And if this is not another piece of evidence that shows you that you have to take the risk, you have to go all in for a quarterback because it is a quarterback league, I don't know what else is. So like, what can you say kind of in regards to that?
Dude, I think that this Super Bowl was like a great matchup of quarterbacks where one is like that game manager type of quarterback in Brock Purdy, and he's like a system quarterback, right? And then you have this like playmaker in Mahomes that just finds ways, he's got the talent obviously, but he just finds ways to win the game, right? Like, for example, in that overtime, how many times did you see Patrick Mahomes run the ball to get that first down? Dude, like and it's not something that's part of his game that he does consistently, but when, you talk about the receiving and like Kelsey and all these guys like being covered, well, I need to get a first down. It's 3rd and 1, it's 4th and 1, and it's 3rd and 1 again. I'm going to run the ball and get that first down. And you saw him do that, especially in that overtime drive so many times. I just threw that defense off guard. And then once you start doing that so often, I think that what happened is like the defense is like in that last play, right? Like, the defense is, hey, I need to stop Mahomes from getting that touchdown. And 2 defenders get close to Mahomes to try to stop him from getting that run. And Mecole Hardman's wide open for that touchdown, and rest is history, right? So having that dual threat, a quarterback that's like a playmaker, that's next level, not just a game manager. I mean, that's the cream of the crop, man. Once you get that, I think you're going to be successful. But that's so far in between, right? Like, it's so hard to get that kind of quarterback. But when you're looking at this draft, like you're looking at Caleb Williams or the guy from LSU, you're looking at those 2 guys and saying, hey, like, this is probably the closest thing that we can get to Patrick Mahomes, and we've got to go all in and determine which guy is going to come out on top out of those 2 guys, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think you bring a great point. It is very tough. It's very hard to do, but you can't do it unless you're trying to do it, unless you're trying to draft players and hoping they, like, again, you can't do anything unless you're literally attempting to do so. So just real quick, let's go down memory lane in recent memory of Super Bowl winners, and we'll even look at the Super Bowl teams in terms of their matchups, right? So we can just get a sense of the quarterbacks that are playing in these big games and how imperative it is to continue to try to take swings at a quarterback because of how important that position is. Obviously, this past year, we have Brock Purdy. We've already talked about his Mr. Irrelevancy, all that. He is an outlier. Who is he playing against? Patrick Mahomes. Last year, Patrick Mahomes against Jalen Hurts, who was a 2nd-round quarterback who people argued could have been a 1st-round quarterback. Year before that, Joe Burrow, number 1 pick against Matthew Stafford, number 1 pick. The year before that, Tom Brady, GOAT, against Patrick Mahomes, GOAT. The year before that, Patrick Mahomes, GOAT, against Jimmy Garoppolo, same system, right? So this is a system outlier. Year before that, you have Tom Brady against Jared Goff, who was the number 1 pick. The year before that, you have Carson Wentz, who was the number 1 pick, even though Nick Foles played, against Tom Brady, who was also the GOAT. I mean, the writing's on the wall, Shovit. You cannot win Super Bowls. You can win regular season games. You can win divisions. You can win a playoff game. You can win a divisional game. When it comes down to it in the playoffs, when you need 3 or 4 of the most clutch games and performances where you need to be a cold-blooded, stone-cold killer, man, that's where the quarterback comes into play. And again, I understand it's a team game, but the elevation that you get from a quarterback is second to none. So I think this is a blueprint for franchises. The Chiefs are a great example. Even just like if you just take out this year, the Chiefs were winning 11 games a year. Teams would kill to win 11 games a year. With Alex Smith, they were a contender. They were a contender with Alex Smith, and they said, you know what? Here is the barrier. This is a threshold that Alex Smith can take us to. We have to take a swing to get over this hump. You can't keep winning 10, 11 games and getting knocked out in the first, 2nd round of the playoffs. That's not the ultimate goal. So again, every year that keeps going, man, defensive players are getting freakier, Shovit. They're faster. They're getting to the quarterback. Like I was watching a Pro Football Focus, and they were breaking down offensive lineman play. And think about it like this. Your offensive lineman can only get so freakishly athletic because most of their game is backpedaling, right? So there's a certain level of like cap that you can backpedal. The fast, like the most freakish of athletes, the freakiest of freakiest offensive linemen can backpedal. But what isn't stopping is how freaky these defensive ends and linebackers are getting. They're running like 4.3s now. You have linebackers and defensive ends running 4.3. So at some point, man, you could have Trent Williams. That dude got blown up in the Super Bowl 2 or 3 times. You have one of the best left tackles of all time getting blown up, right? All time. So the world is evolving is what I'm getting at. And every year that goes by with defensive players getting freakier and offensive linemen, again, they have a cap in what they can do no matter how great they are. That's why the mobile quarterback is becoming so much more prevalent. You can't stop these 4.3 guys, bro. You can't have I hate to do this. Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett in college had the athleticism. He looked like he was athletic. He looked like he could make plays. But then you translate his speed of play to the NFL. And dude, he's taking like 3 notches back, right? Because he's just, that's not the same level of speed. So I think that's where I'm at. I want the Vikings, I want every team to look at this and be like, hey, do we have a guy that's not named, like if we have a guy that's not named Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, CJ Stroud, maybe there's a cream of the crop, maybe 7 guys. If you don't have one of those guys, I think the motto and the story and the moral of the story should be you need to keep taking swings at quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, Kansas City Chiefs are a dynasty now. And if you're trying to build a dynasty, then without a quarterback, just an average, mediocre, I don't think that is ever going to be possible, no matter how good your defense is. And for a defense, right? Like, if you know that you can all you have to do is just only allow a field goal, and Patrick Mahomes is going to come back. Your quarterback is that good that he can lead this team to a victory. It's got to be a different mindset for a defense to go into the game, go into that drive, and just be like, all right, we got to give it our best because we know we stop them. We're winning this game because Patrick Mahomes is going to do his thing. So it's just, man, what a luxury for the defense as well.
It's that drug that's called confidence, man. Like you drink that confidence drug when you when you're a defense, like you said, and you're playing and you have Patrick Mahomes, you're like, guys, if we just get a stop, even if we just give up 3, he's going to score. And I can't sit here and tell you a time as a Vikings fan where I've ever felt that, hey, we're getting the ball here, we're going to win. And I feel like maybe you can. Maybe with Big Ben, you had those feelings because Big Ben was a beast, right? Yeah. Obviously, maybe not to the same level, but man, I mean, with elite quarterback play, you get that confident feeling, and it's what's the word? It's gosh, what am I trying to say? Where like you have an illness and other people can get it too. Contagious. It's contagious.
Yes.
The confidence is contagious.
Oh yeah.
So you see the rest of the team play the same way when they have a quarterback that's like, dude, if I just run my route, the ball's going to be there. Rashee Rice, I just run my route, the ball's going to be there, right? That's why Mecole Hardman and Sky Moore and nobodies can like be impact players because they're like, if I just run the route, MVS, the ball will be there. I just have to catch it. So it's absolutely incredible. And the crazy thing is we have another maybe 10 years of getting to watch Patrick Mahomes play football. So just let that sink in for a moment, that for 10 more years, we are going to be jockeying and toying to find other guys that can compete with this man, because he is literally what the epitome of the greatest tier of a quarterback position play looks like from every standpoint possible. I think he's better than Tom Brady. Tom Brady's won more, but to me, it's no comparison from a talent standpoint. I did real quickly, we got off on a tangent. I want to highlight the 49ers. I think Brock Purdy played a great game. With what he had, Deebo Samuel getting hurt, going in and out, really the CMC early fumble, which you just never expect from CMC, right? He was behind the 8 ball quite a bit. And one of my bets that I told you that I loved that didn't end up hitting because Brock Purdy played well was over half an interception. So Brock Purdy throwing no interceptions in the Super Bowl. I can't even think of a throw that like had the potential to be tipped or intercepted that's coming off the top of my head. And I know in the championship in the divisional round, he had 3 or 4 of those. So I think he stepped up his level of play. Juwan Jennings, dude, throwing a touchdown, catching a touchdown. The dude's notorious for being a blocking receiver in the zone scheme run offense. That's what they love about him. But in one of the biggest games with Deebo being banged up, with Kittle just completely disappearing, Ayuk only 3 catches. Juwan Jennings, man, shout out to him. He's been part of that franchise for a couple years now, and he's always like the unsung hero. When Ayuk is hurt, Jennings will step in. When Deebo's hurt, Jennings will step in. But today, or not today, but in the Super Bowl, when all those guys were healthy, still on the field, Deebo was out, but he came back in. Juwan Jennings stepped up, man. Despite the loss, I can imagine that this is going to be a game that he remembers for the rest of his life.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. Almost getting decked too on that play where he throws. Where he was second away from getting a sack, and he throws it to CMC, and CMC's just gone. Like that was it. That was an amazing play for that first touchdown for the 49ers.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. Now let's swing it over to Shove It. I know we had talked a little bit about bets we were taking. So I'd taken officially from the podcast. I had talked about 4 bets that I liked this game. My best bet that I brought up first was the Kyle Juszczyk over a catch, which I think cashed in the first drive of the game. Nice. So that was
I was so
awesome.
pumped when that happened, right? Like I was like, this is it. Like that's it. You got it. Like all you needed was one catch, and I think it was the first drive or one of the.
It might have been the first or second drive. It was like the first quarter for sure. It was super early in the game. And what's really funny is like 3 minutes before kickoff, one of Shishot's friends, he was texting one of them, and I think Shishot told him about the bet that I like. He was like, Kyle Juszczyk, and he's like, screw it, I'm gonna ride it just so we can, I can tail the homies. And within like the first quarter, he's texting him back, being like, hell yeah. So, dude, what a feeling. You just knew that man was going to be involved some way, somehow. So that absolutely cashed. The other thing I liked, which I didn't personally bet till live in the game because I didn't want to take a side, but I felt like, again, you're getting Patrick Mahomes, the best player of all time, as an underdog. They were plus 120 money line, and that would have absolutely smacked. So if you took the Chiefs to just win it as underdogs, you were a very happy man. And my 2 bets that didn't cash, which again, one of the craziest parts of how this game unfolded to me was the lack of George Kittle usage. 2 catches for 4 yards on 3 targets when, the Chiefs are notorious for being a blitzing defense and Kittle's the safety blanket. So, a lot of times when you don't get your tight end involved, it does feel like the offense feels a bit clunky. And that's kind of how I can best describe what San Francisco felt like, right? They would move the ball better than the Chiefs at sometimes it felt like, but when you needed a big play or you needed like a clutch play, and typically that's where Kittle steps up, it didn't feel like they had that. That's where Juwan Jennings sometimes stepped up, but when push came to shove, they didn't have the elitist of their elite players step up. So the George Kittle over 47.5 receiving yards got absolutely shat on. I think he had like 4 receiving yards for the game. And so I think my bets on the podcast went 2 for 2. Juszczyk hit, Chiefs hit, but Purdy interceptions did not hit, and the Kittle receiving yards did not hit as well. Shove It. How was your Super Bowl betting?
So I mentioned 2 bets. One was the CMC. First one was the Pacheco bet for over 66.5 yards. He got 55 yards, and that did not hit. Kind of what I was saying, like, hey, if the 49ers go up on top, then Pacheco isn't going to get his yardage. And so I had the hedge bet, which did hit. So I was, 1 for 1 or 1 and 1. CMC. I had to get over 18.5 carries, 22 carries for CMC. So that did hit. I just kind of broke even on there. There were some other bets that I didn't bring up during the podcast that I was actually looking at as well. It was the songs, the amount of songs that Usher was going to sing, and it was 8.5, and that like blew out the park. I don't even know what the total. I think the total was like 13 or something.
Well, what's crazy is what is considered, like, I guess if he just brings up a song, it counts, because there were some songs where he literally sang like 3 seconds of it. Right. And I guess based on overall songs, that counts because he brought up a new song, right?
He brought up a new song.
Well, we didn't know he was singing one line of a song, man. I would have smashed the over had I known that counted.
I know. It was like 10 seconds, one song. He just kept changing and changing. And so altogether, I think there was it's 12 or 13. I don't remember right now. And then the other one was over 89.5 seconds on the national anthem. I actually thought it was going to be under, right? So I'm at the Super Bowl party. Anish, who's big into planes, and he knows that the Thunderbirds are flying for the first time over the stadium. So he tells me, I was like, hey, 89.5 seconds. Like, what do you think, over or under? And he goes, listen, man, the Thunderbirds need this amount of time for it to fly over.
Wow.
And whenever the rockets red blare, when that plane comes in and the fireworks go off, well, the plane, they're in the air, they need this much time. So he thinks the over is going to hit. And sure enough, that insider information was correct, and the over hit. I was like, oh my God, I wish I knew this before, but it was crazy. I felt like I knew something that I wasn't supposed to know.
Bro, that's some next level strategy. Like, let's get it to our aerospace engineers about how quickly those planes are going to fly, so we know how long she has to hold that note. That's incredible, bro. What a way to hit.
Yeah. So 1-1 in the bets that we talked about in the podcast. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was obviously watching the game. I wish I was at the Super Bowl party with you guys. That looked like a lot of fun. I was watching the game with Shishot, and there were 3 bets that I took live during the game. And I'm a big proponent in live betting because I think there's so much value in there. And what I typically like to do is once you get into the second half, you'll have one team that's always like, one team will be winning and one team will be losing. So I like to always look at the receiving yard props of the losing team. Like you'll always find 1 or 2 players that are completely undervalued because they're not like the target hogs, right? They may get 1 or 2 catches a game, or they may not get a catch. So their receiving yards late into the third quarter or into the fourth quarter is like 1 yard above what they already currently have live. And so when the 49ers went up, I was talking to Shishot and I was like, you know what, man? No, surprisingly, you would have thought Kelsey, but this is how much of a sharp I am. I was like, dude, I kind of think Justin Watson or Noah Gray is going to catch another pass. I kind of think they're going to catch another pass. I was like, who do you think is more likely to catch a pass? And he was like, dude, that's close. He was like, I think Justin Watson. I was like, yeah. I was like, I think you're right, but I honestly think both of them will catch a pass. So I took both of them to catch a pass, and because their receiving yards was like 1 yard over what they currently had. Lo and behold, obviously they both caught a pass, so that smashed. And then, dude, this was the best one. CMC on the final drive before overtime had 54 receiving yards. I think his over receiving yard prop was 58.5. So I was like, dude, a 5-yard dump off to CMC on the final drive when you're losing has to happen.
Right.
Didn't happen. It didn't happen. But what was awesome was the game went to overtime. And in overtime, CMC caught a pass. So that also smacked, man. So live bets went 3-0 for me, which
Let's go.
I ended up making way more money than the 2-2 on the pregame bets anyway. So, dude, it worked out. I'm telling you, man, live betting is absolutely where it's at. It was a lot of fun to watch the game. Again, the game was fantastic. Congratulations if you're a Chiefs fan. I mean, what an awesome 5-6 years. The day after you drafted Patrick Mahomes, your life changed forever as a Chiefs fan. And right now you're probably just, I don't know, man. Like I can't even, I try to put myself in their shoes to even envision or imagine what it feels like to have like the greatest player of all time, to just be winning Super Bowl after Super Bowl, to go into the next year just assuming you're going to make the playoffs for sure. You have a good chance to make, like, I've never had that mindset as a Vikings fan in the 32 years that I've been a fan. I never gone into the season being like, yeah, we're guaranteed to make the playoffs. We're probably, we're going to be a Super Bowl contender. That has never ever happened. So to be a fan of a team that has to get to have that mindset, I salivate at that. At that thought.
It's crazy. And my parents' neighbors, they're a Kansas City Chiefs fan, and they're from Kansas City. And it's crazy to think like a city like Kansas City could ever become like a dynasty like they are right now. Like, would you have imagined that? Like, no, yeah, our city is gonna win multiple Super Bowls, back-to-back Super Bowls, and potentially three-peat next year. So they're ecstatic right now. So I mean, it's, man, what a fandom. Like, that must be nice.
It's super nice. When's Patrick Mahomes' contract up? Is he maybe going to ask for a trade or something? you think the Vikes will swoop in when he's 38 years old after his 10-year contract's over? Because we love to pick up washed-up quarterbacks.
Dude, I mean, unless the Steelers beat you to it. I mean, we could give.
We would gladly take 1 year of Patrick Mahomes at the age of 40 just to see what that would be like. I think that would be awesome. But regardless, man, again, Super Bowl champs, 3rd Super Bowl already for Patrick Mahomes, 3 Super Bowl rings, 3 MVPs in the finals. He's, I think, 3-3 before the age of 28, which just edges out Tom Brady, who had 3 Super Bowls and only 2 finals MVPs. So looks like he's on track. And, I don't know that his team has ever three-peated in the history of the NFL. I'm pretty sure they haven't. And that's what scares me even more, that I think the Chiefs, like, they want to do this. Like, Patrick Mahomes wants to be this guy. The fact that Kelsey immediately after the Super Bowl said, I'm coming back. Andy Reid said, I'm coming back. Dude, I know there's going to be a lot of steam on the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl. A lot of people will put that money next year. But I think, in order for Mahomes to feel like, I have to either get 7 rings to be Brady, or I have to do something that Brady hasn't done. If 7 rings is hard to bring, that's 4 more rings. But if this mofo three-peats next year, man, to win a Super Bowl back to back in the NFL, one of the hardest sports to repeat, not only repeat, but win 3 times in a row. He could put a stamp and he could basically get a pet goat, or he could, whatever he wants at that point, because it would be undisputed at that point. I mean, I don't care what he did at that point.
Yeah, I mean, after that, like, does he even play football anymore? Like, he's done everything that he could possibly do. 3-peat in the National Football League would be insane, but I don't want to take that away from. I mean, I don't want to count that against him. I think that they can definitely do that, especially when you have Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, they can make it happen.
Like Kevin Garnett, anything is possible when you have Patrick Mahomes. But
yeah,
that is it, man. That was Super Bowl 58. Did you have any good commercials? Like I honestly can't even think of like good commercials that I watched, to be honest.
No,
some of the trailers. The Deadpool trailer was cool. I'm looking forward to that.
Okay. Yeah, when you're watching a Super Bowl party, it's too loud and like you can't really listen to it. So no, nothing. Yeah. I don't know. I might need to go back and watch the highlights for the commercials, but I didn't see any.
Usher performance, where would you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10?
Oh man, dude, when Ludacris was there, when he's in the rapping part, that was a solid like 9 to 10. I was thinking, like, does Katy Perry's like the walk-in that she did with like the tigers and then I think there was sharks and stuff, like, does is that up there too? Yeah, you know, they're close. Those two are close.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people, it's like a personal taste. A lot of people think Prince's performance was like the best ever. A lot of people think like Beyonce's, obviously, you know, Beyonce is gonna have her stands. So Shakira was pretty good too. But no, dude, I think like as long as I can remember, the last 3 or 4 years, Super Bowl performances have been bangers. Oh, yeah. So
last year with Eminem and Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg.
Dre. Yes. They crushed it. They crushed it. Yep. But another Super Bowl in the books, another NFL season in the books. It's been a treat to cover the entire season with everyone. And the best part is we are not done. We don't go away. The offseason is beginning, and there is so much to talk about. We will dive into the draft, into the prospects, and everything else that comes with the offseason, way too early mock drafts, etc. So thank you guys so much for a fantastic season. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the like, hit the subscribe. It helps spread the word and keeps us wanting to do this. If you're listening to any place you can get your podcast. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at The Only Playbook. I am Sweetheart. That is Shovit. Have a fantastic week. We will see you guys next week.